At this point, I would like to introduce Sharon. As you may be aware, this week is actually International Stress Awareness Week. And in fact, today is National Stress Awareness Day. We are privileged to have Sharon Williams available to present us this topic for this particular date, harnessing personal resilience strategies used by world-class leaders. By way of introduction, Sharon was referred to us by one of our highly regarded ASCI members who has worked with Sharon in the past. Sharon works with leaders and teams to build resilience and maximize performance and productivity. She uses the core principles of human behavior and positive psychology to deliver tailored programs that assist C-suite executives, senior leaders, and teams to achieve and exceed their goals. Sharon's programs are evidence-based with over 15 years of proven results. She has worked with a wide range of clients from diverse industries, including 3M, Woolworths, BHP, Rio Tinto, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, and Volkswagen. Sharon has let me know she is happy to connect participants on this webinar beyond today's event using LinkedIn or making contact with her directly, and her details will be made available at the end of the presentation. Thank you, Sharon, and welcome to ASCI.
Thank you so much, Brendan. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, lovely. It's my absolute pleasure to be invited to deliver this workshop for you today, this webinar on personal resilience. And I have a lot to cover, and I would love to just launch into it so I can give you the most value that I possibly can over the next 35 to 40 minutes that I'll be speaking, to allow us some time for questions at the end. So please feel free, if you've got a burning question, please feel free to throw it in the chat box, and Brendan, I've asked Brendan to interrupt me if it's relevant to what I'm talking about, or there will be time for questions at the end. So any comments or interaction, any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the chat box and we can go from there. So let me just start. I'd love to start with a poll just to feel how you're feeling right now. So what are, out of these responses, which response do you resonate with the most at the moment? Are you feeling burnt out or exhausted, somewhat overwhelmed, content or mostly happy, or thriving? So just take a few seconds. Don't think about it too much. Just put in how you're feeling right now, this minute. And the polls are anonymous, as Brendan said. So I'll keep talking and those results will come up for me shortly. So I'm wondering if anyone's feeling like this. I've been running a lot of resilience webinars over the last few months, all year actually, especially since COVID started, and particularly in Melbourne the last few months. And I've got to say a lot of my clients are feeling like this. So why is that? Okay, thank you, Monique. Monique shared the results. So we've got 13% feeling burnt out or exhausted, 30% somewhat overwhelmed, 39% content or mostly happy. That's fantastic. These numbers are great. And that leaves 17% for thriving. Guys, this is the best result I've seen in a long time. So whatever you're doing something well. For the 13% that's burnt out and the overwhelmed, there'll certainly be strategies to help you today. And for everyone else, well done. You're doing really, really well. What I would like to do is normalize that feeling of being burnt out, exhausted, or overwhelmed, because a lot of my leaders are feeling exhausted right now, and it's due to this concept called cognitive fatigue. So usually my November and December executive coaching calls are often about, okay, how do we get through to the end of the year? It's more about survival, not setting new goals and new projects. It's about making it. And that's because people are cognitively fatigued. So that's a norm for every year. Throw in COVID and you're making high-level complex decisions all day, every day in the height of it. You've had to reorganize your systems and processes. Many of you are working from home, or particularly during lockdown, we all were, and you've dealt with homeschooling or lack of seeing your colleagues, lack of seeing family members. So there's a lot of high complex decisions that have been made. The environment's changed, and then sometimes things change and we have to make those decisions all over again. So what can we do to help this? We actually, a part of today is well, all of today is building resilience, which will help us with that cognitive fatigue and building that muscle and that battery backup. I'll give you 5 tools today to do that. And also I have an ebook on my website. I'll give you the details at the end of the presentation that is specifically on strategies to reduce cognitive fatigue. So if you are in that overwhelmed or burnt out category, I'd recommend you read that. It's a short one. Now, what we will talk about today is what is the resilience? What do the world-class leaders do? What tips can we take from them? And then what can I do? What can I personally do? Maybe I'm not a Barack Obama or a world-class leader right now, but what can I personally do in my life? And my challenge to you today, my invitation is that if you take one thing out from this session and absolutely implement it fully, that could possibly change your life for the better. So what is one thing that you would like to get? If you could write that down, I'm not going to ask you to share that, but what's one outcome you would like from the webinar today? When you, I normally say walk out the door at 2 o'clock, but when you leave meeting, when you click on that leave meeting sign at 2 o'clock, what is it that you would like to have gained from today? So write that down and we'll come back to that at the end, and that will make it a worthwhile use of our time. So what is resilience? One definition, and there are many, resilience is about being flexible in stressful experiences and bouncing back when they are over. Now, I'd like to take this concept even a bit further today. So I have the motto, thrive, not just survive. So, and there's a few concepts, mental toughness, post-traumatic growth and anti-fragility, that are all about the same thing. It's not just about bouncing back after a stressful event or an adverse event. It's about bouncing forward. It's about growth. It's about being even better than you were before the stressful event. So that's what these tools I will give you today will teach you. This is a great book called Anti-Fragile by Nassim Nicholas Taleb. And he talks about this concept of anti-fragility, which is just what I was referring to, that some things get benefit from shocks. They get better from shocks. So especially in nature and biology, we see this all over the place. So things thrive and grow when exposed to volatility, disorder, random events, and stress in general. For example, our muscles, when we go to the gym, we actually are tearing those muscles. If we work hard enough, we're tearing those muscles, and then they grow back stronger and even better than before. Same with our immune system. When we're exposed to low levels, small levels of toxins, we actually build immunity and we get stronger and we're able to fight those toxins. So we actually grow through exposure to adversity. So if we can reframe to look at stress as a positive event and a challenge that is going to help us grow and to be even stronger than before, then that has enormous effects for our physiology and for our mental state as well. For example, I'm hoping to do the Rottnest swim this year, the Perth to Rottnest Island swim. It's 8 hours. You do it in a group of 4, which means about 2 hours in the ocean. Now, if I practice in the swimming pool, I could practice for 8 hours, but throw me into the ocean and I'll still probably sink or need to be rescued. I actually need to get into the ocean. I need to be tossed around by the big waves and the freezing cold water and see what it's like to be afraid of sharks coming around, because that's what's going to make me stronger. As many laps as I can do in the pool is not going to help me do this swim. So we need to throw ourselves into these situations where we can grow. And if we're in those situations naturally, we need to reframe of how this can be a positive for us rather than a stress. So resilient people, and I think that Nelson Mandela is probably one of the most resilient people to have ever walked the planet. They often have an executive presence or a positive view of self. In my executive coaching, I often get people come to me and say, Sharon, I just want more presence. I want people to have more respect or influence me or like me. So resilience is a great place to start. People are more likable, they're more easy to be around. I'll let you read all of those. But also they have close relationships with others. And the most important thing is they have higher work and life satisfaction. As a psychologist, I'm all about helping people be the best that they can be at work, but also it's all together. Work-life integration is what we're aiming for. And so I want people to have home lives and life satisfaction outside work as well. And that's what I work with all my clients on. And that's what today's webinar is about. So if you are a leader, there will be plenty of tips that you can take as a leader and to share with your team and to enact on your team. And if you're not a leader, there are plenty of tips to do for yourself. I think everyone can be a leader, whether they've got direct reports or not. We are all leaders and we can all step into those leadership shoes and really influence people around us. Doesn't matter whether we've got direct reports or not. So Nelson Mandela has this lovely quote, or had. He said, "Do not judge me by my successes. Judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again." Now, he was pushed down over and over. He didn't just fall. They pushed him down and he just kept getting up and up again. Serena Williams is another world leader in her field. And she says, with a defeat, when you lose, you get up, you make it better, you try again. That's what I do in life. When I get down, when I get sick, when I don't want to just stop, I keep going and I try to do more. I've grown most, not from victories, but setbacks. And I love that last piece particularly. So today I'm going to give you 5 tools, which is my 5 to thrive. These are sleep, exercise, breaks, meditation, and social connections. These have the most evidence behind them to help with resilience and peak performance. I'm writing a book on peak performance called Beyond Elite at the moment, so I've been doing a lot of research around resilience and peak performance, and these are 5 of the top things that we can do. So I'd like to just do a quick poll again. Which of these tools or strategies do you find the most challenging to do? Do you struggle to get sleep? Is it exercise that you find challenging to fit into your day? Are you one of those people that gets to work and never has a lunch break, or doesn't take holidays? You've got two years of annual leave up your sleeve. Is it meditation? You've tried it, it just doesn't work for you. Or is it having enough time for social connections, for family and friends? So I'll move on while we do that poll. So let's start with sleep. Sleep, I'm going to spend a bit more time on sleep because it is actually one of the most important things we can do for productivity, for peak performance, and to build resilience. I love this quote by Bill Clinton. So he said, "In my long political career, most of the mistakes I made when I was too tired because I tried too hard and worked too hard. You make better decisions when you're not too tired." So that would be my only advice. And I suspect he probably maybe didn't get enough sleep around those impeachment days. So thank you, Monique. The polls come through. So people struggle with sleep, 38%. Exercise is 23%. Taking breaks is 23%. Meditation, almost half of you, is 46%. And social connections, 19%. So in some, half of you approximately are not meditating or struggling with that. Social connections are the best. So you're better at meeting people and prioritizing time for others than at meditation. And the other 3 are all fairly even, 38% for sleep though. So I will say again, sleep is one of the most important things. Thank you so much, Monique, for that. So what lack of sleep does, let's start with not sleeping. So I'll let you read most of these, but the things that stand out, that sleep actually changes our metabolic, endocrine and immune pathways. The other one for me is cardiovascular disease, coronary heart disease and stroke. And lastly, suicide ideation, suicide attempts and suicide. So lack of sleep has been linked with all of these health problems. And I can't tell you, as a psychologist, it worries me so greatly. The research coming out about teenagers in particular, about depression, anxiety, stress and suicide. And I have never had so many clients in my whole working career of 15 years that have had suicide attempts or actual suicides in their children's school as I have had in the last few months. And this is a real concern. So these tactics, if you've got kids, you can share these with kids as well. And sleep is one of the most important things that children need. They need to recharge those batteries even more than we do. And right now, a lot of them are sitting in their bedrooms on iPads till way past midnight and not getting enough sleep. Bill Gates, another world leader. I mean, obviously he was the chairman of Microsoft and the founder for a long time, but what he's doing with polio is amazing. He, with Rotary and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, have almost eradicated polio from the world, which is amazing. He says, I like to get 7 hours of sleep a night because that's what I need to stay sharp and creative and upbeat. And what sleep does for us, it restores, it rejuvenates, it recharges your body. It regenerates the cells that clean out the cobwebs from your brain every night. It's like a computer defrag. It just goes in and cleans out all of the clutter. What that cleaning out does, it increases your decision-making capability. It enables the learning of new skills. So when you clean out the clutter, the brain's so clever, it can decide what to keep and what needs to be cleaned out. And, you know, it might be what Paris Hilton did on the news today that you saw. You don't need to hold that. So the brain will unlearn that and it'll defrag and get rid of that. But you might have learned a new project management skill today or a tip on resilience today. And your brain will say, I need to keep that. So in the sleep process, it will actually consolidate the learning for those new skills and new memories that you want to keep. So without enough sleep, you're more likely to have lack of mental clarity, less memory because that learning and unlearning pathway hasn't been rejuvenated, and lower cognitive performance in a number of measures. Sorry, gone the wrong way. Arianna Huffington, who's the founder of the Huffington Post and the author of the book called The Sleep Revolution, Transforming Your Life One Night at a Time. She wrote this book because she was working 14, 16, 18 hours a day when the Huffington Post was doing really well. And she's in media, it's in the news, that doesn't stop. And she actually collapsed one night at work, hit her head and ended up in hospital for months, numerous, tests, MRI tests, and they just kept looking for what was wrong. And in the end, the doctors just said, burnout. That's all it was. It was burnout that caused these huge problems. So she's now changed. She'd researched this book on sleep and said the sleep is the most important thing. She says it's very hard to be resilient when we're run down, and sleep is profoundly intertwined with virtually every aspect of brain health. And she says, most importantly, if you are a leader and you want to be promoted or you want to advance your career, then the best thing you can do is sleep your way to the top. Which I love. And Warren Buffett, I've got 2 more quotes for you. Warren Buffett, possibly the most successful investor of the 21st century. If you're into investing, you'll know who he is, Berkshire Hathaway. And he says, choose sleep over extra profits. Now, bear in mind, this is a billionaire worth something like 84 billion, I think. And he says a good night's sleep leads to making better decisions and better performance in the long run. So he's not in it for the short haul, he's in it for the long run. And he famously went into his New York office one day. He lives in Texas. He still drives an old beat up ute of some sort. But he went into the office and he noticed how tired everyone was. And he had all these meetings planned. And he said, you know what, everyone go home, get a good night's sleep. We'll reconvene tomorrow and we'll get a lot more done. So he really practices what he preaches. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Jeff Bezos, who is actually the richest man in the world and the founder of Amazon, says, I go to bed early, I get up early. If I've had 8 hours sleep, I'm more alert, I think more clearly. I just feel so much better all day long. My primary job each day as a senior executive is to make a small number of high quality decisions. That means getting 8 hours of sleep. And I think better, I have more energy, my mood's better. And he went on to say in this article that if he slept less, he could make more decisions, and he tried it, but they were less quality decisions. They weren't as good, and it wasn't worth his while. So if you're a leader, even if you're not a leader, please take consolence that we need to actually get sleep to be the best leader that we can be. That's how we actually recharge. So tips, we need a minimum of 7 hours a night for sustainable performance. That's what the peak performance research tells us. If we want peak performance, we would need 7 to 9 hours. So a minimum of 7, but 7 to 9 if you can. And really the best way to know how much sleep you need is just to not set an alarm and go to bed and get up when your body wakes up. That's how much sleep you need. It's more important than diet and exercise, research has shown us. And we used to think that lack of sleep caused depression or contributed to depression. Now we actually know that, we used to think depression caused lack of sleep, but now we know lack of sleep actually can cause or contribute to depression. So it's a very serious thing. And if you're getting less than 7 hours, you're just not performing at your best. So what are some tips that can help? An alarm clock for bed. I was doing this years before the Apple phone started to having the bedtime alarm. And it's pretty embarrassing when you're out to dinner and your alarm goes off at 9:30 and you say, sorry, folks, got to go. That's my alarm for bed. But it's worth it. When you're high performing the next day, it's absolutely worth it. All the sleep researchers say go to bed and get up at the same time, even on the weekends if possible. That's going to help your sleep patterns, and you shouldn't need an alarm. If you're going to bed early enough, then you should wake up naturally. An alarm will just break your sleep cycle, and you don't want to break a sleep cycle. They're about an hour and a half each, and that very last hour and a half is the most helpful, is when the most helpful regenerating happens, and that's the one that we mostly miss. We need 5 sleep cycles, and that last hour and a half takes it up to about 7.5 hours. A lot of people miss that, so they never get that high quality computer defrag that we need. So what is the lack of sleep costing you, and what could you do right now? If you could please write down one thing that you're committing to. And Roy Baumeister is the world expert on cognitive fatigue and decision making. I talk more about him in that free ebook that you can download. But he says sleep is the most important thing to recharge the battery. If you have to choose anything, choose sleep. He says if you don't get a full night's sleep and wake up refreshed, your decision-making battery will not be fully charged the next day. And then, like Jeff Bezos says, then you're not able to make those high-quality decisions that you need to do. So that was sleep. Next is exercise in the 5 to Thrive. I won't spend too much time on this because we all know that exercise is an absolute must for physical health, unless you've been living under a rock for your whole life. And we also know now how important it is for mental health. It's one of the best immune boosters or protections against mild depression and stress and anxiety as well. And it's actually a great antidote if you do have mild or severe depression or a range of psychological illnesses. Exercise is really, really helpful for us. And if you want peak performance, despite the mental health benefits, it's actually imperative for peak performance. And often getting exercise in your day, it's just a mindset shift. If we wait until we're motivated or we feel like it, it probably won't happen. You just have to plan for it and do it. And I love this quote from Mike Tyson. I'm not a fan of boxing, but I do like his mindset. And he said, I hated every minute of training, but I said to myself, don't quit, suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion. So he just did it, didn't think about it, just did it. So what are some tips for exercise? And you guys probably know most of these, and I'll just run through them very quickly again. Get your NEAT up. So NEAT is non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that is the calories or the energy that we burn when we're not doing planned exercise, when we're not at the gym or we're not riding our bike. So how we get this up is doing things like taking the stairs instead of taking the lift, parking your car maybe 100, 200 meters away from the supermarket so that you've got that little bit of walk, getting some steps up during the supermarket trip. Maybe getting off the bus a stop early or the train a stop early and walking to work and walking back. That's how we actually get our NEAT up. Also, now that we're doing so much work from home and we're doing phone calls and webinars, standing up. I found back in March, April, when I started converting all my workshops to webinars, I'm walking around, I'm using a lot of energy. Webinars, I was sitting down. So now everything I do, phone calls and webinars are all standing, and you actually convey more energy that way, both in your body language and in your voice if you're on the phone. I've had 2 clients this week say to me, one said, I was on a Zoom call and I went out into the garden and I just picked some weeds and it was fantastic. I got some sunshine and I felt so great afterwards, and I didn't have to contribute much on the call, so I could have the video off. So I was able to do that, and I'm going to use that as a strategy. And another one said to me, I didn't realize I had an hour's coaching session with her. She's an executive client. And at the end, she said, that was the best call ever. She said, I've been sitting in my hammock, lying in my hammock for the last hour, taking notes, looking at the trees, hearing the birds, and it's been fantastic. So get creative. What can you do to get outside? Maybe walk, listen to webinars, and you can still contribute while you're walking. Other ways to get exercise that makes it more likely to happen is with a friend. You're less likely to not commit to the friend, to cancel on a friend, than you are if you're doing it on your own. Or getting a dog. There's so much research about the benefits of having pets, the oxytocin release when you pat a pet, and the love and companionship. But a dog will make you take it for a walk, and you'll feel guilty if you don't. So that could be a really good strategy. A lot of my clients have gotten dogs and have been on these health kicks and are actually looking and feeling better after COVID than they were before COVID. And basically whatever programs that you used to do, you know, yoga, personal training or boxing, they're all online now and you can do them at home. So what's one thing that you can commit to get more exercise or to get enough exercise right now? Please write that down. In the coaching world, we say if it's not written down, it's less likely to happen. And then again, I just say, think Nike and just do it. Don't wait for the motivation. You just have to do it. That motivation may not come. So that was exercise. The third tool that I'll give you is breaks. I won't spend too much time on this because the next one's a big one. Now, the peak performance research tells us that the most productive days that we have are the first day and the second day after a day off. So in the 80s, it was really cool to not get enough sleep and to be one of those people that I can survive on 4 hours sleep a night, or I can work through my lunch break. I'm so busy, I don't have time to take lunch. It was almost a badge of honor. Whereas Daniel Pink, who writes about breaks and restoration, he's got a great book called When, The Science of Timing. And he says those days are long gone. Now the clever leaders are the ones that say, I need a break. I'm taking lunch breaks. I'm taking mid-morning and mid-afternoon breaks. And I'm certainly taking holidays and weekends. So have at least one day on the weekend where you don't open your computer and you don't do any work at all. And you will maximize your productivity, particularly in the first and second day after that day off. And also the periods after a holiday are hugely productive. I had a client in a workshop say once to me, because I always say, have a holiday planned. And I know that's challenging right now. However, you can still travel regionally, if not internationally, and you can make plans for holidays in your own state. So plan a holiday. And this client said to me, no, Sharon, you've always got to have 2 holidays planned so that when you get back after your holiday, then you don't get depressed because you've still got another one to look forward to. So I like his way of thinking. Taking a lunch break. I have clients when they start working with me and they say, I don't have time to have lunch. And I say, well, actually, you're lowering your performance and your productivity, because even taking a 15 to 20 minute lunch break where you go outside, if possible, you have a walk, maybe you call a friend or you just meditate, you have this look at the nature, listen to the birds and the sounds, you will come back and you'll probably make up an hour's or more productivity of what you can do by taking that 15, 20 minute walk. And again, Daniel Pink tells us the most restorative breaks, if you want the most rejuvenating breaks, outdoors is best, movement-based, and social. But the caveat is the social talk can't be about work, because then you're brought back into work and it's not really a break. So if you want to hit the trifecta, then those are the 3 things to do. Make an appointment with a friend to go for a walk at lunch with a friend if you're in the office, or call a friend or a colleague and go for a walk outside. And that'll maximize your rejuvenation in the break. Now, there's some really progressive companies, and I don't know if any of you are doing it. Please put through in the chat box if your company has got a nap room, because that would be amazing. I don't know any companies that Australia are doing it yet, but Google, Uber, and the Huffington Post, they all have nap rooms. what some of my clients do, I've got one, he's a doctor, as a specialist in a hospital, and he says, I go to my car in the car park every day and have a 20-minute nap. And if I don't have the time to walk to the car and have the nap and come back, I'll just close my office door and get under my desk and have a sleep, because I know how much better I am in the afternoon. And the research says this is actually a really great strategy if you're tired. And I worked with someone 20 years ago that used to have a nap under his desk when he was tired. And back then it was a little weird, but now I think, wow, he was way ahead of his time. It's actually really, really productive to do so. So what will you commit to in terms of having breaks right now? So that's breaks. Now I'm going to move on to meditation. I'm doing pretty well for time. I am talking fast. If I'm talking too fast, please put a comment through and Brendan will let me know. Meditation is next, and I'll spend a bit of time here because 46% of you said this was a challenge for you. So I'd love to actually influence or convince you or invite you to start taking on meditation as part of your daily practice in order to maximize your resilience and maximize your productivity and performance. So why should we meditate? There's research that says it increases our performance in all facets of life, in work, in our sport, or just in our physical health and mental health as well. It decreases stress levels, it helps you sleep better. There's research that says you have better sex, and there's lots and lots of research around increased health and happiness markers by meditating. A Harvard Medical School study, very scarily, found 96% of executives experience burnout, and 1/3 of them marked this burnout as severe. And we know when people experience burnout, 5% never recover. So they don't go back to their jobs, or they don't go back to their company, or they don't go back to work at all. So we do not want to get into that 5% where we're just not able to continue our lives functioning as we used to. So unfortunately, if you are a leader, or even if you're on this webinar, you're obviously a high achiever because you're here to learn and grow. We're at higher risk of burnout because of that achievement drive, that motivation to keep going. So meditation is something that provides a really great buffer to burnout, as does exercise, but meditation even more so. Tim Ferriss of the 4-Hour Workweek fame, he has amazing podcasts and books, and his latest book, The Tools of Titans, he interviewed 200 world-class performers in science, in business, in sport, in music, in arts, across all domains, and he found 80% of them engage either in regular meditation or some sort of morning exercise that they saw as their meditation. Maybe it was going for a walk or a run, but they classed that as their meditation. I've listed some other people that famous people that meditate and ascribe their success to meditation. And I've got a photo of LeBron James there, and he famously meditated during a really important timeout in a really important game. So he actually stopped, the whole team had a timeout, and he went off and he meditated because that's how important it was for him. And the late Kobe Bryant, who we've all heard of, unfortunately because of his death. So he was a big fan of meditation, and he said he just did not perform as well, both off the field, off the court, and on the court if he missed his 10 to 15 minutes of meditation every day. Almost all the leaders that I coach now meditate because I expose them to the research that says, basically, if you're a leader and you're not meditating, then you're not being the best leader you can be, and you're not being an inspiration for your team. So Steve Jobs, one of the most creative and innovative leaders that ever existed. Walter Isaacson, in his biography, said this about Jobs, that his creativity and insight are not attributed to the cutting edge technology nor the latest marketing theory, but by inner reflection through meditation. And Jobs was an avid meditator from about 18 years of age, and he swore by meditation to help him come up with his creative ideas. He thought that was responsible for his innovation. He liked the space that meditation gave his mind to come up with these ideas. There are now thousands of neurological studies that have been done on the brain and meditation and how it helps us, as well as psychological studies and how it helps us in our lives. But we know that the brain actually changes with meditation. Our prefrontal cortex, in this part of our brain, is the CEO part of our brain that's responsible for all the executive functioning, like decision making, thinking, creativity, problem solving. So we know that when we meditate, our prefrontal cortex thickens, those neural pathways thicken, and they get faster and stronger. So we're able to be more sharp and more focused and more creative and better overall cognitive function. We also know that it controls our emotional regulation and our ability to stay calm. Again, I know many of you on the webinar today are leaders, and this is one of the things in my coaching. I often get referred to people that they've sabotaged themselves. Their performance has dropped because of their inability to keep calm and keep cool and keep controlled. So they come to coaching in order to be able to have that ability to stay calm and focused. I'll share with you just one study. This is probably one of my favorite study on meditation. Anton Lutz from the University of Wisconsin-Madison's, he had two groups of people. They were the experienced meditators that have been doing it for a very long time, and a novice group of meditators that had just started. And for both groups, I don't know how he got ethical approval to do this, but he got a scalding hot wire and he burnt them on their legs. And what he found, both groups went, ouch. Understandably, it was a shock, and he had them wired up under functional MRI scans, and they both had an amygdala response, and the somatosensory cortex went off. But the interesting thing is two things. The experienced meditators had a lower stress response. So the new meditators, the ones that weren't experienced, had a much larger stress response in their brain. And then they were sent back to work and they were monitored again. They were still wired up on these functional MRI scans, and they were also tracked in terms of their output, in terms of problem solving, errors made, creativity, and decision making. And what they found was the experienced meditators, not only did they have the smaller stress response, but they went back to baseline very quickly, and their cognitive functioning was far outweighed the novice group, who stayed in that stress state for much longer at a higher level, and they made more errors. They had slower cognitive processing. They didn't come up with as many ideas, and then they made worse decisions. So if there's something one thing that you can take away from meditation, if you want to stay calm in times of stress, and I believe for most of you leading up to Christmas, this is one of the busiest periods possibly for you. So meditation is absolutely the tool that can help you to stay calm. Some other research, and there's so many things that meditation help you with in terms of physical markers, but one study found, just one, that 23% you were less likely to die overall, 30% less likely to die from cardiovascular problems, and you have a significantly less chance of dying from cancer. So this is serious. They're the most serious things, but meditation can help with recovery from operation, with fertility, with prevention of injury. There's lots of things that they find with meditation. And the last bit here, I want to very clearly say that I do not attribute that success means making a lot of money, that this is just one marker I was looking at in my book on peak performance of who meditated. And I thought, wow, these are some really successful and rich people that meditate. And I found all these billionaires that swear that meditation is one of the tools that help them to be so successful. Jerry Seinfeld, he was on 950 million, but he's the world's most successful comedian and the richest comedian. So I threw him in there. Unfortunately, Oprah's the only female billionaire that I could find, but she's doing great things with her program with Deepak Chopra to grow the enhanced meditation for people. And there's a free program, you can Google that, and they run that quite regularly. So what are the actions here? Well, firstly, how long will it take? Malcolm Gladwell talks about his famous 10,000 hours. With meditation, not the case. In just 3 weeks, studies have shown if you do 20 minutes a day, you can start to thicken that prefrontal cortex, which is amazing. 3 weeks is real. 20 minutes a day is nothing. But I would say start with 5 or 10 minutes a day. Meditation's tough. You never clear your mind. You always have these thoughts that are jumping around, the monkey mind. mind. And so these are some apps. Please don't try and do it on your own because it just won't work. These apps will help you. Headspace have a free Take 10 program. Headspace is an app, and it works a treat. My clients love it. Most of my leaders will use Take 10, will use Headspace, and that's just 10 days of 10 minutes a day to get you in the flow. Also, Buddhify, Calm, Breathe. I just downloaded Breathe a couple of days ago, and I'm a notoriously bad sleeper, and I was asleep before the app finished. It was a 13-minute meditation, both nights, asleep before it even ended. So it's really helpful for sleep if you do it last thing at night, and it's really helpful first thing in the morning if you do it in bed before you even get out of bed. A lot of really successful people do that to set themselves up for the day, to stay calm and grounded and more productive for the whole day. I have some clients that have kids, or for whatever reason, they can't do it at home in the morning. One goes for a swim every morning, and then she gets out of the pool, and before she gets driving to work, she'll sit in the car and meditate for 10 minutes. Another client has 3 children under the age of 5, including twins. So he says, it's just not possible, Sharon, at work to do it at home. So he comes into work, and the first 10 minutes at work, he closes the door and he does it. And if for some reason he works in a hospital, so if he's interrupted, he says, I have an absolute cutoff rule. By 2 o'clock, I have to have done my meditation. Nothing else will get in the way. That's a non-negotiable. So what will you commit to with meditation? Try it for 3 weeks. Your brain will actually change and you won't go back. I can almost guarantee that anyone that does this for 3 weeks will start to see the benefits and won't go back to not being a non-meditator. So finally, social connections, and you guys know a lot about this, but I'll just point out a really piece of interesting advice, study that happens at work. Positive relationships, we know, support development and learning at work, and we also know they increase happiness significantly, both at work and outside work. If we're working from home either all the time or some of the time, we're missing those social connections. We're missing those coffee chats where we go to the coffee shop or in the tea room, or the water cooler chats. And the research coming out of COVID is that innovation and creativity is going down dramatically in companies because of those little impromptu chats. A lot of great ideas came from that, and cross-pollination of teams, which people aren't doing at the moment. They're just talking to their own teams rather than talking to people outside their teams. This is a fascinating piece of research by Kim Cameron from the University of Michigan. He talks about positive energizers. They have found, he works with the UN and some of the biggest companies in the world. I met him at a conference a couple of years ago, an amazing man. He says that positive energizers are 4 times as likely to succeed at work. So you want to be a positive energizer. I'll share with you what that is in a moment. And you also want your team to be positive energizers, because the organizations that flourish in terms of commercial success and cultural success have 3 times as many positive energizers in their workforce than non-flourishing organizations. So these are some of the attributes that positive energizers have. They're not necessarily the joker, the office clown that walks around, dances on tables. It's not that. It's someone that could be quite introverted or quiet, but they instill confidence in others. They problem solve, they see opportunities, they support others, they smile, they're genuine and authentic, and they have high standards. So my invitation to you is be a positive energizer yourself, and look for positive energizers in your team and really help them grow and enhance their capability of spreading that to others in the team. So what can we do right now? We need extra check-ins with a buddy or your manager, your staff or colleagues, especially if we're working from home. We need to have a morning and afternoon chat. We need to, if you're a leader, you need to be checking in with each of your staff at least once a week and eyeballing them so you can actually see them, not just a phone call. You want to see how they're going and see that they're not, there's not any markers of depression or anything amiss that you see, any changes. Virtual lunches can be really popular, or even better, go for a walk. Have a walk and talk, morning, afternoon tea breaks or lunch break. Friday afternoon, a lot of my clients are doing virtual board games or trivia or drinks on a Friday afternoon virtually. And you can use your positive energizers to bridge the gap. Make it part of their role to actually call more people and see how they're going. Give them that opportunity because it energizes the positive energizers and it energizes the people receiving the call as well. So they are my 5 to thrive. I'd love it if we just do one quick last poll of which of these strategies or tools did you find the most helpful? So Monique will help us out with that one. And while you do that, I will just share, here are some other resilience toolbox tips that I haven't had time to talk to you about today. 3 good things, character strengths, the value of green things in the office. However, I do have a monthly newsletter. It's free. You can sign up to it. It's the details are on the next slide. And you can get a piece. I usually talk about 1 or 2 of these tools every month. If you want to know more, that's one place you can go. Now, time to make it happen. You've had some insights, some ideas, but without action, nothing will change. So I'd like you to think about what is one thing, what is the biggest insight or learning you had today? And please feel free to share that in the chat box with Brendan and he can let us all know. And what are 3 actions that you're committing to take that will have the most impact for you right now? Now, at least 1. And think back to the thing that at the beginning of the session we talked about. What is it the one thing that you want to, when you leave meeting today at 2, what is the one thing that you want to have achieved? And if you haven't achieved it, please ask a question in just a moment. But I'll share these poll results. People found the meditation was the most helpful, 56%, that's great. And sleep, 22% for sleep, and 7% for the other 3, exercise, breaks and social connections. They were the shorter pieces because I think we know the benefit of that already, but often my leaders aren't aware of the benefits of sleep and meditation. So please make sure you write that down. My mentor, Tony Grant from the University of Sydney, I did my master's in coaching psychology. He used to say, if it ain't written down, it ain't going to happen. So, and there's a lot of research that says that's true. So if you have enjoyed this conversation today, before we go into question time, I'd love you to subscribe to our monthly newsletter for some extra tips and tools. There's the website there. You can download the free book, ebook on cognitive fatigue and decision making with some tips. And if you are a leader and you do want to take a deeper dive into resilience, peak performance and leadership, for ASCII members, I've got a special of a 3-month executive coaching program, which includes a psychological and leadership assessment. So I'm not just a business coach looking at business metrics. I find, and my clients say what's most helpful is the feedback and the psychological insights of what they're doing that's helpful, but most importantly, the triggers or what they're doing that holds them back from being the best leader that they can be. And those insights are what makes them, their performance go up exponentially. So that's the cost there. Because I'm quite busy running resilience webinars at the moment, I've got 5 spots available to the end of the year. It's a really great time to start because we can really round off this year, do the psychological leadership assessment, and then set goals for the new year and continue on and really set you up for success in the new year. There's my website. Please click join me on LinkedIn and on Instagram and my phone number there. I'm very, very happy to hear from as many of you as possible. I really do enjoy making those connections. And there are some organisations I've worked with, as Brendan's already mentioned. But if we've got some time for questions, Brendan, please do share what the listeners are saying.
Right. Thank you, Sharon. That was fantastic in terms of the energy and delivery. So you must be exhausted. Much appreciated. One of the questions that's come to mind, given that there's lots of tips and tools, but in the current environment, the COVID year we've had, what is the number 1 tip you're giving in executive coaching clients who are exhausted now, given everything that's been thrown at them over the year?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. And there are so many different things. I think one thing that that you can do that I haven't talked about today is this concept of 3 blessings. And this is one of the greatest immune boosters for stress, depression, and anxiety that we know. And it's so simple that you can do this on your own or with your family or a partner. And it's at either the beginning of the day or at the end of the day, just saying 3 things that you're grateful for. And it could be the sun is shining and it's a warm day. It could be I've got legs and I can walk. I have a client that actually lost a leg, had to have it amputated through no fault of her own. And I'll tell you what, that week, my blessings were that I had 2 legs. And it could be, oh, I'm really grateful for this project I had at work. But what it does is it focuses our brain on a daily basis to focus on the positive, and we build those neural connections and those neural pathways that look for the positive, and we actually end up rewiring our brain to be more positive, more innovative, creative, and happier and more calm. So I'd say that's something, it's a bit left field, it's not really work related, but it will help you enormously with leadership and with productivity at work.
Yeah, so that's a really gratitude and for what we have, the simple things.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very insightful. Another question that's come to mind is, given the talk about work-life balance, as we hear over and over all the time, and in particular, if you look at the year that's been where people have gone from offices to working from home and maybe shifting back now.
Yes.
Is there such a thing as work-life balance?
I actually did a talk on ABC Radio National just before COVID, actually, a few months before COVID about this. And I said, no, there is no such thing as work-life balance. And what the new concept, the research is telling us now, is we need to focus on something called work-life integration. So rather than work-life interference, which is work and home are 2 separate things and they battle each other, and we have to get the balance right, and it's really tough. The new concept is, how can we actually work together? How can we join these? So I have a client who's a project manager, for example, and he would say, my kids are now in high school and they have science experiments and they have exams and long-term projects. I'm finding that what I'm doing at work, I can translate or transfer the knowledge to them at home. And it helps them as high school kids. I have another client who is a principal in a school, and he says, I've got grandkids and I'm the hippest grandfather that you know, because I actually know what songs they're listening to, I know what clothes and brands they're wearing. And so how can we actually bring work and home to work together so there's actually an integration? And because of COVID, a lot of our families are now seeing more of what we do at work, so that can be really helpful, that they understand, oh, mum does webinars, or dad actually talks to clients like this, and that and husbands and wife partners as well are seeing more of what happens with each other, so that integration can be really helpful. So no balance, but integration, Brendan. Great question.
That's very good, very sound advice given the changing world. I've got a bit of a conundrum question, Sharon, is if I'm exhausted and I should sleep in, or do I get up early to exercise? Which is more important?
I know that's a really great question, because I know today I've said a lot of times sleep is the most important. The caveat would be you can't sleep in 7 days a week and never exercise. So I would say make sure that you get your exercise in 2 or 3 times a week at a minimum. And you can do something like HIIT training. The research on HIIT training, when I was researching for my book, I was amazed. I thought it was just something that the gym junkies did, but it actually came from science, that in 7 minutes you can do a HIIT workout, and Google it if you want the structure. The structure is a 2-minute warm up, 20 seconds of some fast activity, a minute cool down, 20 seconds fast activity, a minute cool down, 20 seconds. So 3 sets of 20 seconds, and then a 2-minute cool down. Takes you 7 minutes. We've all got 7 minutes a day that we do, but you do that 3 times a week and you're set. So I think, Brendan, the answer is both, but sleep at least 5 times a week and do that exercise on the other 2 or even 3.
Yeah, fantastic. And I've got another question is, during the COVID period, and with a lot of people working from home and leaders being detached from their teams in terms of physical connected environment, What are some of the signs that leaders can look out for or be aware of when people might be facing fatigue or burnout?
Wow. I actually do a whole webinar on mental health for managers because it's been super popular this year because of obvious reasons. I think that the one biggest tip I can give you is look for changes. So look for people that they're more disheveled, or if they're usually very well groomed, that, you know, they're not wearing makeup if they're a woman, or they're you know, they haven't done their hair, or they look like they haven't showered for a few days. If they always look like that, then that's not a problem. It's the changes. It's also the change in their voice. If are they speaking slower than usual? Or are they speaking faster, like much more faster than usual? That's an anxiety sign. Have they put on weight over time? Depression, you can either put on weight or lose weight. And what other things are they talking about, or what are they not talking about? What are they not saying that they normally would say? So really being looking for those acute changes in behavior. And the second thing I would say, I know that the Are You Okay? People say it's all too simplistic. And yes, it is very simplistic, but it's a great way to start a conversation. So ask, I'm noticing these changes. Is everything okay? Is there anything I can do to help? And if they say, no, everything's fine, and you suspect that it's not, just keep touching base. Make a daily phone call if necessary. But say, oh, look, that's great. I'm glad you're okay. I'll just check in with you tomorrow or the next day. So the changes, the are you okay? And keep checking in. Suicide is on the increase, and I would hate for any of the leaders here to have to experience that in their teams. So just check in. And also, I know someone said, I can't believe my manager, the amount of times they checked in on me during lockdown, it was phenomenal. And staff really appreciate the check-ins. We don't see it as being interfering, seeing it as being helpful.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Sharon. We're pretty much running to the 2 p.m. sharp at this point. I would like to thank you again, Sharon. That was brilliant. I think all of us have at least taken one thing away, if not more. I would just say to people, if you can just make it simple and implement it, then this will have been probably the best worthwhile hour of your week for a long time. Really appreciate, Sharon, for your links, your contacts. I'd encourage people to follow you with the free ebook and so on, and they can connect with you beyond if they want more resources.